Hello, Cancer. Welcome to the Plaid Oracle. Cancer. It's going to get good. It's going to get really good, Cancer. And this reading is about the good and also about how to manage that, how to allow that. Because maybe that hasn't been your experience always. The card out is the Keeper of Pleasure. And as with so many things, we have a distorted relationship with pleasure. At times we've seen it as sinful, or in a more modern age, we see it as self-indulgent, or as, we have to have just a little bit of pleasure. If it's too much, then maybe we're in the realm of addiction. There's all these things, these ways that we constrict our pleasure. And I think, Cancer, that you have some, very special ways of your own that you do that. That you fight the ocean. But there's an opportunity now with Jupiter moving through Cancer to really transform that. Because we have, in fact, transformation. And at the bottom, the Keeper of the Waves. This is you. So rather than seeing yourself as somebody who is at the mercy of the waves, that you are the keeper of the waves. You're not just the crab, you're also the ocean. That's really what we mean when we say we create our own reality. It is meant literally. I think that we want to believe it, but then we don't want to believe the sort of downside of that. But everything that is in your environment comes back to you. And that is both a great responsibility as well as a great freedom. And depending on how you look at that, you're going to have varying experiences. So we have here the Eight of Cups, and your head is in this watery space. You are moving toward that. And there is this, below it is this seer of fire. And this card always has kind of a double-edged feeling to me. On the one hand, there's this, right, the seeing of fire, but then there appears to be a little sort of drip of blood, and there's kind of the Eye of Sauron thing, and Clockwork Orange coming through. Below that is this Nine of Wands. There's something that you want to follow. And actually, I'm also going to note that the Scout of Earth is here. There's something you want to follow. The Three of Wands is on the bottom. There's something that you want to pursue. Below this transformation card is action. And then I'm seeing there's laughter. And then I'm going to go one more with reach. Because that's bringing up that quote, right man's dreams should exceed his reach. Else what is a heaven for? Is that the... Is that the quote? I don't know, I may be mangling it. But that's the idea that that reach card is making me think of. The reaching for something that has seemed out of possibility, that has seemed impossible or just too far, whatever. We have the Magician. The deliberate creator. You know, right? We're creating everything. I actually sort of think it's, you know, it's kind of interesting. There's all these, you know, there's manifestation practices to manifest something. And I get it. I get it that we're talking about that is the sort of deliberate thing. But it always seems to me in the discussions of these things that we leave out the fact that everything, like literally everything, that the next thought that you have, the you know, that then creates a feeling. All of it are manifestations. We're doing it all the time. We cannot help it. It is that deliberate thing, and I do feel like these manifestation practices have their place. You know, if there's something very specific that you want. But this feels like, you know, kind of getting your whole life turned around. Into a space where you're doing this more deliberately, where you're thinking thoughts more deliberately, where you're really paying attention to the feelings that you have, the reactions that you have. You know, and not in a policing sort of way. I can't do that, I mustn't think that thought, no. Just in, like, really paying attention. There's something, and it's probably because, in part, Mercury has just stationed retrograde today that I'm recording this. He stations direct on August 12th, I think it is. And he's moving back and forth in Leo. That is a space of creativity, of the light, of the sun, of what you express. And then Jupiter's in Cancer, your sign, and Jupiter's beliefs and philosophies, how you move through the world, you know, how you expand, what you expand, how you even think about expansion. And I think these things together, they're happening right next door to each other, Mercury and Jupiter in a semi-sextile part of the time. And that's kind of it's like a tricky little energy. It's fire and water. But there's a real opportunity in that. And we do, in fact, have the Scout of Fire and the Scout of Water. Symbol of alchemy, fire and water conjoining. to make something completely new. Now, in between them, we have this Four of Cups. Right? Being tethered in some way to something. There is something that you are attached to, loyal to, some intention that you made in the past, some belief that you have that has tethered you. You have not been free, fully able to participate in this deliberate creation process. And that the deliberate creation, I want to say, is less about really focusing on the thing that you want. Of course, if it's really enjoyable, right? Maybe you want a new car and you really love to sit back and imagine yourself in just the car that you want. You know, to feel the seats and to imagine yourself driving it and to feel the acceleration and all of these things. But it's really right about the feeling of it. You know, how the exact make and model and color translate into feeling. How you feel about it. Right? That's your wheelhouse, Cancer. And you want to release that. You want to release those feelings. You want to release the ability to really experience pleasure, to bask, to savor, to sink into it. You know, I don't know if you've got guilt, if you've got, you know, cautionary messages in your head about fantasizing too much and having unrealistic expectations or any of that stuff. It's interesting, we have this Temperance card, and Temperance normally, you know, is both about mixing things together, but also about moderation. You know, if you temper an alcoholic drink by adding water, you moderate how much alcohol there is. But here with this person who is like calling down the storm, there is no sense of that. There is no moderation here. This is about allowing all of it, like really bringing the ocean in. Right? You are the keeper of the waves, Cancer. Below that is this joyous Four of Fire. And on the underside is this World that often feels to me like making a wish. You know, you light these paper lanterns and they float off on the hot air into the sky. These wishes, dreams. Not, you know, it's not just allowing yourself to dream. It's allowing yourself to believe that the dream is completely realistic. Nothing impossible about it. Right? We get the Nine of Water. Wish fulfillment. And then this fabulous Seven of Earth. Of things coming to fruition. You know, the snake in this garden is just telling you the absolute truth. It is available. There's nothing illicit about it. It's perfectly natural, right, to harvest these fruits. To turn towards this rather than, right, this heavily laden Ten of Fire down on her knees. This Nine of Fire, Nine of Wands, who's beset, right? There's all these eyes staring at her, and she's, you know, her bow is on fire, and this is not necessary. It's just unnecessary. You know, no, there's no judgment here. If this is how you have seen your life, and it may be showing up in really subtle ways. You might not even be somebody who, you know, really catastrophizes, or who, you know, always sees the glass as half empty. It can show up in really subtle ways. Resistance can be really subtle. Right? Because many of us have lives that are just, you know, they're fine. Right? They're fine. There's nothing dreadful happening in them. You know, work is okay. Our relationship is okay. But we want more than that. Right? We want more than okay. We want to feel juicy in life. We want to take pleasure in life. And a lot of that is about attitude more than it is about what the thing is. But there's no judgment to that. It's just, what do you want? You know, if you want this juiciness, then this stuff is unnecessary. It's just going to impede progress. There's no badness or wrongness. It's just unnecessary. Right? Another Four of Wands, celebration. The bottom here is the Ten of Vessels with happiness. Then the Ten of Cups. We've got the Nine of Cups and the Ten of Cups. We do have Temperance appearing here as balance. And I think this is more about centering. Not balance in the sense that you'd like to have some bad stuff and some good stuff. But balance as in being centered. You know, being, right, like having your sense of equilibrium accurate, right? If your sense of you know, if your inner ear goes off, you have trouble with your balance, you fall. This is having that internal sense of equilibrium, of alignment. And actually, I didn't show it, but below this Four of Fire is Justice. And for me, Justice mostly comes out as that sense of alignment. More natural justice, more, right, spiritual justice than human justice. So we get the Two of Stones, Two of Pentacles, challenge. And then this Four of Stones, protection. Right? Some of the challenge may be, you know, a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety. But then we get the Ten of Stones, home. And this always seems to me like actually going out. Like you're at the threshold about to step out. So you're kind of challenged. You've been sitting in this place maybe, right? Everything's fine. It's just fine. You know, do I really want to go out there? It's just fine. And I say, yes, you want to go out there, because then we get the 10 of arrows with instruction. You know, I sort of feel like this is you, maybe in the past, just kind of firing randomly at things. And then this is you learning to hit the target. And then we get the 5 of bows, empowerment. And here, this bowman is mystical, right? He is the Cern Abbas giant carved into the landscape in England. I think it's Cern and not Kern, but I'm not sure. I'll write it down in the thing. Maybe it's important in the description. Maybe it's important. Maybe somebody's going there. I'm going to go see it. He doesn't actually have a bow in reality. But, right, this is magical empowerment. This is spiritual empowerment. This is bigger, right? He's giant. This is bigger than the everyday. So this willingness to give up, right? To give this up. To give up cautioning yourself all the time. To give up holding yourself back because something is unrealistic. Or it's, you know, too self-centered, or whatever it is. Whatever your flavor of self-restriction is. Giving that up. So we have cultivate love. Below that is tangibility, make your dreams real. Now the underside has this very interesting card, Hex, that says, be still and allow the enemy to reveal themselves. And that often comes out to me as meditation, you know, or getting a little quiet so you can see what thoughts rise to the surface. So that you know maybe what is the stuff. And it may not even be, you know, cautious thoughts. It may be other kinds of thoughts that lead to this restricted place. Only you are going to know. If you know, in this Mercury retrograde period, during a retrograde, that's the moment when the given planet is closest to the Earth, is when the retrograde happens. So symbolically, because I don't think it actually has to do with physical distance, but symbolically, metaphorically, spiritually, energetically, it's more intense. The planet's effect and influence and, you know, energetic weather is more intense. So we're really having Mercury. And that's an opportunity to examine that. What are the thoughts that I have a lot? And it may not even be the same thought. It may be a kind of thought. I, for example, have a tendency to problem solve, even for things that are none of my business. I just have this kind of automated, I see something, it looks like it might be a problem for someone, and my mind is automatically thinking of solutions for this person. And this isn't bad as such. I'm not, berating myself or, having some sort of negative spiral, but I am focusing on that. I'm focusing on a problem and on how to solve it. And it's taking up space and it's taking up energy when it isn't even mine. And it also creates this habitual thing. So that in my own life, if I see something, I'm automatically kind of in this problem-solving space. When it may not be necessary. Right? I can allow source. I can allow my vibration to solve the problem. To release it, to allow it to resolve itself. So it may not be, what we think of as traditionally as, restrictive thoughts. It can just be that you have some habitual thing that you do in your mind that takes up space and creates some resistance. It maybe brings more of the, in my case, then I'm bringing more of these kinds of things into my experience, right? Which are, right? It's like putting a bunch of things into your shopping cart that you don't actually want. So seeing what that is, and this is a really good opportunity for that. And so we get detox, cleanse and restore yourself. It might be real and physical, but I think this is more about these thoughts, these patterns of thinking that we have that take up space. And then let love grow, right? Cultivate love, let love grow. And I often see this person here as being a little reluctant. Someone who has been hurt and who is, right, like if you've ever hugged anybody who's really stiff, when you hug them, because they haven't experienced really good hugs in their life, they haven't been open to that, perhaps. They had stuff in their childhood and it created a pattern that they still have. And that you may have to hold that person. You may have to give them a bunch of hugs before they will relax. You may have to do that for yourself. We have this idea now that if someone is uncomfortable with something, we should not force it on them at all. And I understand that. Because their discomfort may be, rooted in some really terrible experience. Or in some pattern of neglect that they experienced. Or some pattern of smothering that they may have experienced. But, if that's you, if you never challenge yourself, then you're never going to get past it. You can go slow, but you have to go. And I feel like you can't, there's a point where you're going too slow. This is about challenging yourself to do what may in the beginning be really uncomfortable. I mean, it may even be excruciating. But it's the only way that anything will change. It's the only way that you can expand past the bubble. And you're kind of in between, these things. You're in between Leo, where this Mercury retrograde is happening, and then Gemini, where Uranus has just showed up. And you've got Jupiter happening in your space. You had this new moon conjunct Jupiter. There is a lot of intensity. And if you hide from it, if you refuse to engage with it, if you go too slow, right, you're not going to get anywhere. You must be willing to be uncomfortable in the beginning, to allow the universe to hug you. And to hug yourself, to place yourself in these situations where you get hugged. Really or metaphorically. And I think that Cancer is actually good at this. I think this is something, because crabs, right, they do have the shell and the claws, but they go out on the beach. They like go all sorts of places. I think that you have so much courage, so much openness, so much sensitivity, so much, right? You are the ocean. You are the keeper of the waves, Cancer. Maybe that is Jupiter's real gift. This moment's gift is to remind you, to allow you to see yourself and accept yourself and embrace yourself as the keeper of the waves. Formal advice. 9 of materials. With the Muse of materials right below that, right? You get excited about the roses. There's this whole stream of them. You go into this whole land of roses. And then there's death. Transformation. The bottom is this 4 of voices. And this, I think, is this. Taking the time to pay attention. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be during meditation. I mean, the 4 of voices does talk about that, about a meditative state or a contemplative state. But it might be journaling. Morning pages might actually be a really good way to do it. Julia Cameron, the woman who wrote The Artist's Way, has a practice she calls morning pages. You hand write 3, 8.5 by 11 pages in the morning without no censor. You just write what comes up. You're kind of unloading stuff. And you can do it, I mean, she does it in the morning. I think you can do it anytime. Actually, in fact, it might be a good idea to do it at night. Because I kind of have this idea that morning is a fresh space. And that doing morning pages in the morning is actually a little counterproductive. But if you do it at night, because night is this space when you can release resistance. So maybe you do morning pages at night before you go to bed. You just write like the whole day, whatever crap showed up for you, anything, right? Just unload it all. And then go to sleep clear. So you wake up clear. So that's a possibility, or journaling. You know, and then you can go back and have a look. What was I writing about? What kind of stuff kept coming up? Notice during the day. You know, I don't know, however you need to do it. Maybe you set an alarm. And whenever it goes off, what was I thinking about? Or, you know, if you're reading an email and you're going to get ready to respond, think about, you know, am I doing something automatically? Just paying attention. Seven of Materials. Following the Rose Road. Rather than the thorn road. Or the dirt road, or the, you know, the road of pain. And then there you are. I mean, Cancer. We have you here, and we actually have you double. Knowing who you are. I want you to know, Cancer, who you are. You are the keeper of the waves. This is my favorite Queen of Cups card, because she's magnificent. There's no fear here. Right? There's no safety consciousness, no victim consciousness, no passive aggression. All of those sort of shadowy things that can come up for Cancer. Right? The power of the ocean. The power of the wells. I think of Cancer as the sacred wells. How deep do they go? Connected to all the waters. I've sometimes said that I see water. My experience, my understanding of water is as a multidimensional sacred being. That all water is connected. The water here, to the water on Mars, to the water across the universe. That for water there is no distance. And we are connected to that because of the water in us. And you as a water sign. Right? As this Queen of Emotions. And then the moon, you know, also speaks of the ability to hold uncertainty. To even revel in uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen next, and that is the best part. And feeling your way through things. And then there's this Knight of Voices. Be ready. Some new piece of information, understanding, comprehension, something new is arriving. It's also a little nod to Mercury. This is Gemini's card. So, Cancer. Know who you are. That you are the keeper of the waves. That all of this is exciting. That you can embrace pleasure. And use it to guide you in your life. I wish you all the very, very, very best, Cancer. And I'll see you next time. So long.